Hey there, YouTube! I wanted to make a quick little tip to just talk about some stuff that I got interested in sharing because I was watching the new Paul Estevez video where he tried out Karma again, and I left a bunch of comments about all the things that I thought that he was doing wrong. So hopefully at some point we can make a little stream or something together and sort of go more in depth on, you know, how to use Karma and how to get comfortable with Solaris and all that. But in the meantime, I wanted to make this little quick tip to just talk about one of those things, which is how to place lights in Solaris, and this will work for Karma or any other renderer, but again, obviously, I love Karma. We're in Solaris because we love Karma. So let's jump in and I will show you how I like to place my lights in Solaris. Alright, so I'm here in Solaris with Karma. I have my setup, I have all these lights and stuff in here. Let's actually switch to Karma XPU. So I'll do that, it'll initialize for a second. I think that's, yep, there we go. You will see it'll wait to start rendering. So, and then, okay, actually this will kick on really fast. This is actually working much faster. I updated my drivers recently, and I found that before optics, so the GPUs used to take quite a while to spin up, and now it's much faster. So definitely recommend updating drivers to just the most recent ones. Yeah, so then also for some reason my guy's out of focus. I think I can turn this off and he'll be in focus maybe. But let me turn it back on. And if I turn this guy on, I can press, as you can see up here, Shift F to toggle focus plane drawing. And I can say I want to be focused right on this part of my thing, or this part, or whatever. So that's one nice feature within Solaris. I also think I want to just turn off motion blur since we're just kind of playing with this stuff and we don't necessarily want to see motion blur blurring up our lighting and all that stuff. So I'll turn that off and give it a sec. And it'll reinitialize, start up really quickly, and then come on, optics. Yeah, there we go. Great. So now this is really nice. And one thing I'll throw out there also from Paul's video was he was using subsurface scattering, but he had the limit set to 0 because that's the default. So I would recommend, if you're using the new random walk subsurface scattering, you know, turn it up a little bit. Changing the render settings are also a thing that's going to kind of like reset your whole render. But yeah, so it looks like a lot less appealing now. If I switch to the Solaris view mode, also, or the Solaris workspace rather, yeah, if I do that, you'll actually have down here this nice sort of snapshot menu that you can use. And this is really great for comparing, you know, different like settings or different lights or whatever. You can even set it to just auto take snapshots. And one fancy thing about the feature here is that if you take a snapshot, so I'll do it in 1 second once it resolves a little bit more. Yeah, let's snapshot. Great. And then I will change the settings and crank this up to 4 so we see what that looks like and we can compare that. But if you right click on here, you can revert the whole network to this snapshot. So if you're like, oh, I really missed the way that my lighting was set up before or whatever, this sort of like saves sort of like a state of where Houdini was at that point. And we can hit snap in a second once it, again, resolves a little bit more. I want some depth of field also. But yeah, let me wait so I can just compare sort of apples to apples. And there is with 4 bounces, there is with none. So it really helps kind of illuminate these bits and make it feel like the light is actually like more properly kind of scattering within my guy. This would probably be more evident also if I went into my, not that material, if I went into the material that I have up here, which I've actually USD cached it, so I don't really necessarily want to tweak that right now. But if I go into here and I were to lower the subsurface scattering, or raise the subsurface scattering radius rather. So cool. Anyway, so we're back in here. I'm going to turn up the f-stop and set it to something where we get some nice depth of field. And I'm just going to turn off all of these lights, I think. So we have no lights now. And I'm going to set the background to be dark also. Nice and scary. And then now I'm going to do the light placement stuff. So what I was suggesting to Paul was rather than lighting things kind of the conventional way, the really cool thing that Solaris has is these different light placement modes. So I'm going to set this to be a disk light and plug it into my chain here. And I'm on this edit mode, which will let me, sort of like use the standard way of working with lights where I can move it around and, like place it with a gizmo and all that stuff. But let's switch the mode and instead use diffuse. So diffuse will help me for lighting kind of like diffuse areas of my object. As you can see, it really kind of enables me to say like, oh, I want my key light to be here and illuminating this part of it. I can press Control and drag to adjust the light distance. So I can make it really far away, or I can make it really close, and it will compensate with the brightness for that, which is really, really cool. So if the light's really close, the shadows are going to be a bit softer and stuff. And like that looks pretty sweet. But yeah, so let's, maybe do that. Maybe I'll like stick it over there a bit. There's also this really awesome, I'll make another light here. And there's this really awesome shadow mode where I can click to place a pivot, and then I can shift click to place a shadow target if I wanted to maybe like place a light back there that would then create this shadow right here. And I can maybe crank this up a bit. One thing I was saying to Paul also is that these settings are pretty consistent between every renderer, and basically they control the the intensity is a linear scale on the brightness of your light, and the exposure is like an exponential scale. So I tend to leave the intensity at 1 as much as possible, and then just tweak the exposure. The other nice thing here is we make one more light, and we have this specular mode, and this is really nice for just placing specular highlights on stuff, right? Like I know I want there to be a specular highlight right here or right here. Let me lower the exposure a bit. But it's especially useful, like, yeah, if you wanted to make like an eye light or something like that for a character. So yeah, between kind of all these things, you can really sort of like paint with light and stuff. And I think this part of Solaris is like really, really cool. And, I do still, of course, like use the traditional way of setting up lights sometimes, but I find that this is a really nice way to work, and I think that Paul will probably really enjoy working this way. But it just sort of, depends on like what you're doing exactly, and if you have the camera set up for the specific shot that you want, and blah blah blah. But yeah, anyway, I hope this was helpful, and enjoy this tip.